Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into someone really fascinating, a real paradox in modern film, Ari Aster.
Definitely. A filmmaker who, incredibly quickly just shifted how we think about cinematic dread.
Exactly. He became like the face of elevated horror, that whole movement.
Right. And then almost immediately he takes all that success, all that commercial power.
And just burns through it on these huge, really personal, sometimes really divisive epics that you can't even pin down genre-wise.
Yeah, it's a wild trajectory. So our mission today really is to look beyond those labels. We're trying to map out, the themes, the commercial path of this director, born in '86, so he's still quite young.
I'm 30s now, yeah.
But he's already built this significant body of work. We've got a lot to draw on his early life, which sounds pretty alienated, growing up in Santa Fe mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And that huge breakout success with A24. We have to talk about Hereditary and Midsommar, obviously.
They were massive. And then there's that sharp turn, that really expensive pivot with Beau is Afraid, and now his latest, Eddington, the satirical Western.
And the timeline is just breakneck, isn't it? Hereditary in 2018.
Then Midsommar literally the next year, 2019.
And by 2023, boom, Beau is Afraid. 3 hours of pure anxiety that apparently cost A24 a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
So he's juggling these two roles, right? The, totally uncompromising auteur and also this increasingly savvy producer with his own company, Square Peg.
That's it. Square Peg. We'll definitely need to get in there.
So the big question, I guess, for you listening is, why? Why would an artist who finally achieves commercial success immediately risk becoming, commercially untouchable?
It's a fantastic question. And his whole career, really, it's like a perfect case study. You see this constant push and pull between his, pure, unrestrained artistic vision.
Mm-hmm.
He clearly doesn't want to cut his ideas down.
No, definitely not. The runtimes alone tell you that.
Right. And then you have the cold, hard facts of the studio system, even a studio like A24, which is known for being artist-friendly.
Right. There are limits. He didn't just arrive on the scene quietly. He completely took over the conversation, got this incredible leverage.
Yeah, unprecedented, really, after just 2 films.
And then he used that leverage immediately to make films that are, almost by definition, really challenging for a mass audience.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. To sort of understand where that focus on trauma, on messed up families comes from, we need to look way back. His early life.
Yeah, definitely. Ari Aster, born July 15th, 1986, New York City. Jewish family, and apparently quite a creative one. His mother was a poet, his father a jazz musician.
Right, so art was in the house from the start.
Seems like it. And it sounds like it was a bit of a, nomadic start, too. Our sources mention this brief period where the family actually lived over in England.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, his father opened a jazz club in Chester, apparently. Didn't last long, perhaps, but that early taste of, a different culture, being immersed in that creative scene, it probably shaped his outlook somehow.
Interesting. But the place that really seems to define his formative years, where that feeling of alienation comes in, is Santa Fe, New Mexico.
That's right. They moved back to the U.S. when he was about 10, settled there, and that's where he spent the rest of his childhood, adolescence.
And this is where things start to click into place with his later work, isn't it? He talks very openly about feeling deeply alienated then.
He does. He described himself, I think the quote was, as a fat kid with a stutter, just feeling like a total outsider.
Wow.
And apparently getting kicked out of Santa Fe Prep, a private school there, just made that feeling worse. That sense of not fitting in, social awkwardness.
You really see that reflected in his characters, don't you? The isolation, the paranoia, battling these forces they can't quite grasp or name.
Absolutely. You can draw a direct line from that self-described childhood loneliness to the people on screen in Hereditary, or Beau is Afraid.
So it sounds like he was maybe observing more than participating, which I guess is perfect training for a filmmaker.
Very possibly. But alongside that feeling of being on the outside, there was this incredibly intense fixation on movies.
Okay. The obsession begins.
Oh, yeah. And it started super early and really dramatically. There's this amazing story about him seeing Dick Tracy, the Warren Beatty one from 1990.
Yep.
He was 4 years old. And there's a scene, Beatty fires a Tommy gun, and apparently the sound of the violence on screen had such a visceral effect on little Ari.
What happened?
He jumped out of his seat and sprinted, apparently 6 New York City blocks down the street. His mom had to chase after him.
Get out at 4 years old. That's intense.
Isn't it? It's like a perfect little snapshot of the kind of psychological intensity he later put audiences through. It wasn't just liking movies. It was this extreme sensitivity to their power, their ability to, terrify.
That makes so much sense. So it wasn't just casual viewing.
Not at all. It quickly became serious study. He wasn't just watching. He was systematically downloading film knowledge. He was apparently obsessed with Leonard Maltin's movie guide.
Oh, wow. The Bible back then.
Totally. And he spent countless hours at the local Hastings video store. He said he basically exhausted the horror section of every video store around.
Okay, so he really did his homework in the genre trenches.
He absolutely did. And that deep dive into genre rules, into horror conventions, that's why his films feel so smart, so self-aware later. He knows exactly what buttons he's pushing, which tropes he's twisting or breaking.
Right, so he goes from being this obsessive watcher to wanting to create. But filmmaking wasn't the first stop, was it?
No, interestingly, the sources say his first real ambition was to be an author, a novelist.
Ah.
But that creative urge found its way into screenwriting pretty quickly, and the sheer amount he wrote back then is kind of nuts.
How much are we talking?
Apparently, he wrote 6 full feature-length screenplays just while he was in high school.
6, wow.
Yeah, he was just pouring it all out onto the page, probably because, actually making a movie involves coordinating people, money, logistics. Writing was something he could control completely.
That explains a lot about his meticulous approach now. He's a writer first, the architect of the story.
Definitely. And then he went on to get formal training, which really cemented things. He studied film first at Santa Fe University of Art and Design, finished there in 2008.
Okay.
But the really big step, the career maker, was getting into the American Film Institute's graduate program, the AFI Conservatory in LA.
Right, the AFI. That's huge.
Huge. He was in the class of 2010, and AFI is known for giving students the resources to make really ambitious short films, which is exactly what he did.
And that leads us straight into his breakthrough, or at least his first taste of notoriety, the short film era.
Yep, roughly 2011 to 2017, and the one that really put him on the map, or maybe the map of controversy, was his AFI thesis film from 2011.
The strange thing about the Johnsons, even the title is unsettling.
Oh, it is. And the film itself, well, it showed right away that Aster wasn't going to shy away from anything. He was diving headfirst into the deepest, darkest societal taboos.
What's the premise, for those who haven't seen it? It's pretty infamous.
It's psychological horror, focusing on this seemingly normal suburban family. But the core of it is that the father is being subjected to this long-term, non-consensual, incestuous abuse by his own son.
Right. It's incredibly disturbing subject matter. And the reaction was immediate.
Immediate and intense. It premiered at the Slamdance Film Festival, but then it leaked online and just exploded. Went totally viral.
I remember the buzz around it. Polarizing doesn't even begin to cover it, right?
Not really. The sources describe the comments ranging from effusive acclaim, people hailing it as genius, to disgusted vitriol. Just absolute outrage.
But for a young filmmaker looking to make a mark, that kind of reaction is powerful, isn't it? Even the negative kind.
It's gold, basically. It tells the industry, pay attention to this guy. Whether you loved it or hated it, you couldn't ignore it. It gave him instant notoriety and sort of paved the way for him to get a feature off the ground.
Which brings us to 2018, his feature debut, Hereditary, bankrolled by A24. And this film really becomes the touchstone for that whole elevated horror discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we should quickly unpack that term elevated horror for listeners.
Good idea. What does it actually mean in this context?
Well, when people talk about Hereditary as elevated horror, they mean it's using the sort of skeleton of a horror movie, supernatural stuff, dread, people dying.
Right, the familiar tropes.
Exactly. But the real focus, the meat of it, is on really complex characters, deep themes like grief and trauma. The horror isn't just ghosts jumping out. It's the psychological breakdown, the inherited pain manifesting as something terrifying.
So the plot centers on the Graham family after the grandmother dies. This very secretive woman.
Who turns out to have been the leader of a demonic cult, naturally.
Naturally. And this presence starts haunting them. But like you said, the real horror feels like the family imploding from guilt, secrets, and that sense of inescapable inherited damage.
Precisely. And the film was just a phenomenon. Commercially, it was huge, made over $80 million globally.
On what kind of budget?
Tiny, around $10 million.
Right.
So at that point, it became A24's biggest hit worldwide. That instantly made Aster a very bankable name.
And the critics loved it too, didn't they? I remember Peter Travers of Rolling Stone calling it the scariest film of 2018.
They did. And it wasn't just the scares, it was the craft, the meticulous way he builds dread, and Toni Collette's performance, just monumental.
Oh, incredible. Absolutely central to the film's power.
And Aster's visual style was already so distinct. Those miniatures, the dollhouses that Annie Collette's character makes.
Right. They weren't just background props.
No, they were deeply symbolic, representing the family unit itself as this fragile, maybe preordained thing, manipulated by outside forces just like the characters felt they were. He picked up awards too, most promising filmmaker from the Chicago critics. He'd arrived. Not just profitable, but critically acclaimed.
And then, with barely a pause, he follows it up just 1 year later, 2019, with Midsommar, which feels like a deliberate counterpoint to Hereditary.
It really does. It's like the photographic negative in some ways. Hereditary is dark, claustrophobic, interior.
And Midsommar is folk horror, but set almost entirely outdoors in relentless, bright, sunny daylight.
Exactly. He takes this group of American students to a remote Swedish commune for their unique midsummer festival.
Which, of course, involves some deeply disturbing pagan rituals.
Naturally. And the genius move was swapping that dark, shadowy dread for this sun-drenched pastoral horror. It's unsettling in a totally different way.
And thematically, he shifts too, right? Family trauma to relationship trauma.
Yeah, the core is Donnie, played brilliantly by Florence Pugh, who's dealing with immense personal grief and the slow, painful collapse of her relationship with her boyfriend. That emotional breakdown happens against this backdrop of very organized, ritualistic, communal horror.
It was another critical hit. Pugh's performance got massive praise, Aster's direction again.
Yeah.
But this is where we start seeing the first signs of him pushing against maybe commercial expectations.
Yes, the runtime issue. This is key. The original cut of Midsommar that Aster delivered was, what, nearly 3 hours, 171 minutes.
Wow. For a sophomore film, that's ambitious.
Very. And A24, quite reasonably, asked him to trim it down for the wide theatrical release. They needed something more manageable for multiplexes.
But he wasn't thrilled about that.
It seems not. His instinct even then was for the longer, more immersive version. He did eventually release a director's cut, which was closer to his original vision, showing that commitment to the full scope.
Still, even the theatrical cut got nominated for Best Screenplay at the Gotham Awards, I think.
It did, so the quality was recognized, even in the shorter version, but it hinted at this tension, his expansive vision versus the practicalities of distribution.
So the big takeaway from this period is he earns incredible artistic freedom through huge commercial success with Hereditary and Midsommar. He proved challenging horror could be big business.
He basically got a blank check from A24, didn't he?
Looks like it. And what does he do with that blank check?
He immediately goes for the riskiest, most expensive gamble imaginable.
Right. Which brings us to Section 3, the pivot. He's riding high. It's 2020. Everyone's still talking about Midsommar.
And he announces his next film. Not horror, but a nightmare comedy.
A nightmare comedy. Okay.
And he mentions, almost casually, that he hopes it'll be about 4 hours long.
4 hours. Okay, so right away, the signals are there. Genre's shifting. Runtime is ballooning. No more contained horror.
Precisely. And that project eventually becomes Beau is Afraid, released in 2023. It didn't quite hit 4 hours, but it nearly 3.
Still a major ask for audiences.
Yeah.
It stars Joaquin Phoenix as Beau, who is...
Beau is this incredibly anxious, deeply paranoid, middle-aged guy who has to embark on this surreal, almost picaresque journey to visit his overbearing mother. It's like anxiety and maternal control turned into a sprawling, bizarre odyssey.
Okay, but the crucial thing here, the real pivot, is the budget.
Oh, yeah. We need to talk numbers. Hereditary and Midsommar were around $10 million each, right?
Right. Lean and mean.
Beau is Afraid. The budget reportedly jumped to $35 million.
35. That's a massive leap for A24 to gamble that much on something so abstract, so hard to market.
It shows you just how much clout Aster had built up. They were betting the Ari Aster brand itself, the quality, the vision, could carry a $35 million, 3-hour nightmare comedy.
And how did that bet pay off?
Commercially, it was a disaster, a huge flop.
Ouch. What are the figures?
It only made about $12 million worldwide at the box office, against that $35 million production cost, plus marketing.
So the loss was significant.
Sources estimate A24 lost over $35 million on it. It's a steep, sharp drop from the profitability of his first two films.
And the reviews, did they match the commercial reception?
They were all over the place, completely polarized. You had some critics calling it a misunderstood masterpiece, a brilliant dive into Freudian anxiety.
And others.
Others found it rambling, self-indulgent, pointlessly difficult, too long. There was zero consensus. And when you spend that kind of money, you really need some level of critical and audience consensus to make it work.
Which leads to Aster himself reflecting on it. He talked about it in 2025, apparently.
Yeah, and it's quite revealing. He admitted he was pretty sad that it was so maligned. He acknowledged that lack of consensus whatsoever.
Okay. Did he express any regrets about the film itself?
He did say he would do differently now. Specifically, he mentioned tightening the last hour, which he felt ejected a number of people from the theater.
That's interesting. Is that genuine artistic self-critique, do you think? Or is it the pragmatism of a director realizing he maybe pushed the studio's goodwill and the audience's patience a bit too far?
It's hard to say, isn't it? It's fascinating that the director who meticulously crafted Hereditary would admit to actively alienating viewers with pacing and length. Maybe it's a bit of both, a sober look at the financial reality.
Perhaps. But did that big financial hit send him scurrying back to the safety of, say, a $10 million horror film?
Absolutely not. If anything, he doubled down. He immediately followed Beau with Eddington.
Right, Eddington. 2025 release. Another big swing, another genre shift. This time it's a contemporary Western satirical black comedy. Got it in one. Co-produced again by A24 and his own company, Square Peg. And significantly, it's set back in New Mexico, near Santa Fe, in this fictional town, Eddington. Returning to his roots, geographically at least.
And the setting isn't just geographical, it's temporal too, right? Very specific.
Extremely specific. It's set slap bang in the middle of 2020, COVID pandemic lockdowns, the George Floyd protests, massive social and political upheaval.
Wow. So he's moving from internal psychological or family horror to very external contemporary political satire. That's a huge leap thematically.
Huge. The plot apparently revolves around this super tense mayoral election in Eddington between the local sheriff and the incumbent mayor, reflecting all that national turmoil on a small town scale. It sounds like an ensemble piece looking at, the fractures in American society.
A24 clearly still had faith, though. They put serious weight behind it. Premiered at Cannes Film Festival in competition for the Palme d'Or.
Yeah. Artistically, he's still playing in the major leagues. The prestige is there.
Did it reverse the trend of Beau? Is afraid? Sadly, no. The pattern is almost identical. Eddington had a reported budget of $25 million.
Okay, slightly less than Beau, but still substantial.
And it only brought in about $10.5 million worldwide. Another significant loss.
And the reviews?
Mixed again. Respectable, maybe, but not rapturous. Around 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not the kind of buzz that drives audiences to see a challenging satirical Western.
So the evidence seems pretty clear. When Aster moves away from that elevated horror label and into these bigger budget, genre-bending auteur pieces, they currently lose money. A lot of money.
Yeah. The transition is stark. His ambition seems fundamentally disconnected from the commercial success that first enabled it. He's making the films he wants to make, but the audience that loved Hereditary isn't necessarily following him there, especially at that price point.
Okay, so if the genres are constantly shifting horror, nightmare comedy, satirical Western, what is the consistent Ari Aster signature? Let's try and pin down the stylistic DNA here in Section 4.
That's a great question, because there are constants. If you look at the core themes, they run through everything. He's always exploring grief, family trauma, psychological breakdown, societal taboos.
Right. He even called Hereditary a family drama, first and foremost. That focus on the dysfunctional family unit seems key, even back in The Strange Thing About the Johnsons.
Exactly. He's fascinated by what happens when that basic social structure, the family, just collapses under pressure, often internal pressure.
And there's always this feeling of inevitability. Like the characters are trapped by something bigger: fate, genetics, history, cults.
Absolutely. Inherited doom is a huge part of it. And he translates that internal pressure into a very specific visual style. It's not just what happens, it's how he shows it. His use of mise-en-scène is incredible.
Explain mise-en-scène for us again.
Sure. It's basically everything you see within the frame, the set design, lighting, props, how the actors are positioned. And Aster's frames are meticulously controlled. Nothing is accidental.
Like the miniatures in Hereditary.
Or think about Midsommar. All that bright, beautiful sunlight. It's the opposite of typical horror darkness, right?
Wholly counterintuitive.
But by putting the horror right out in the open, in the daylight, he makes it unavoidable. You can't hide in the shadows. You have to confront it. It's deeply unsettling because it's so bright and clear.
And technically, his use of long takes is a real signature too, isn't it? Those extended, often unbroken shots. How does that serve the horror or the unease?
The long take really forces you, the viewer, to sit with the characters. There's no escape through editing. The camera just stays there as the tension cranks up or as something awful unfolds. It traps you in their experience, their discomfort.
It enhances that slow burn feeling he's known for.
Definitely. It's all part of creating what he calls emotional horror. It's not just about making you jump.
Okay, what's the distinction there? Emotional horror versus, say, jump scares.
Well, conventional horror often relies on startling you, right? The sudden noise, the monster in the closet. Aster seems way more interested in unsettling you on a deeper existential level.
So
His films often show the complete disintegration of a person's identity, their sense of control, their agency. Think about Donnie in Midsommar or the family in Hereditary. Their ability to make choices, to act independently, is just eroded, taken over by the cult or by fate or by inherited madness.
So the real horror is realizing you're not in charge of your own life.
Exactly. That loss of control, that existential dread, that's the core of it. And when the shocking violence does happen, and it does, graphically it feels earned, purposeful, not just gratuitous, because it emerges from that psychological pressure cooker.
Right, it's calculated. But okay, while he's making these artistically ambitious, commercially risky films, he's also doing something else, something very practical and strategic on the business side.
Yes. He's building an empire, or at least a foundation. Square Peg, that's his production company.
Founded when?
Co-founded in June 2019, right between Hereditary and Midsommar's releases, actually, with the Danish producer Lars Knudsen.
Smart timing. And they have a deal with A24.
They do. They signed a 2-year first-look TV deal with A24 back in 2021, which is crucial.
Why crucial?
Because it means even if his own directed films are losing money, he remains deeply embedded with the studio. He's a key creative partner, helping shape their overall slate, bring them projects. It gives him insulation.
And Square Peg isn't just about producing Ari Aster's next challenging epic, right? They're diversifying.
Massively. Look at what they've produced or executive produced already. Dream Scenario with Nick Cage in 2023, quirky, successful. Sasquatch Sunset in 2024, definitely out there. The upcoming Begonia.
So he's using his brand, his taste, to champion other filmmakers with kind of adjacent sensibilities. Bold, maybe strange visions.
Seems like it. It keeps him influential, keeps the company generating revenue, and lets him build relationships with talent who aren't afraid to take risks. And it's not just film, they're making big moves into TV adaptations, too.
Okay. Like what?
Really interesting IP. They're developing J.G. Ballard's classic sci-fi novel, The Drowned World, also Nick Drnaso's graphic novel Acting Class, and maybe most exciting for horror fans, a TV version of Junji Ito's legendary manga Uzumaki.
Wow, Uzumaki, that's ambitious.
Incredibly. But it shows Square Peg is thinking strategically, building a library of unconventional genre properties that could be very valuable, even if Aster's own films continue to be commercially challenging. It's a smart hedge.
Okay, so that brings us to the future.
Right.
Section 5, what's next? Given the financial results of Beau and Eddington, you might think he'd dial it back. But his announced project list, it's huge and incredibly varied.
It's staggering, honestly. It looks like a director determined to prove he can do literally anything regardless of cost or genre expectations. He is absolutely not playing it safe.
Where do we even start? There's Antarctica.
Yeah, this sounds wild. It's a major animated feature he's collaborating on with Don Hertzfeldt, the guy behind It's Such a Beautiful Day and World of Tomorrow.
Oh, Hertzfeldt. Okay, that's a dream team for strange existential animation.
Totally. And Hertzfeldt himself called it big and very expensive. So again, not scaling back ambition there, totally different medium and scale.
And his live-action plans seem even more all over the map. He's got an untitled Sirkian melodrama script. We need to explain that reference. Douglas Sirk.
Right. Douglas Sirk was this master director of Hollywood melodramas in the 1950s. Films like All That Heaven Allows, Written on the Wind. Think gorgeous technicolor, intense emotions, stories about often women trapped by social conventions, domestic suffering, hidden desires, lots of heightened feeling.
So how does Aster, Mr. Dread, and Trauma fit into that?
It actually makes a strange kind of sense, doesn't it? He's obsessed with family dysfunction, repression, inherited pain, translating that into lush, visually rich, emotionally heightened style of a Sirk melodrama. It lets him keep his core themes, but ditch the horror aesthetic for something completely different. High emotion is high art.
Fascinating. But then he also seems to be eyeing much bigger, maybe more mainstream genres, too.
Looks like it. He's mentioned having scripts for an untitled musical film.
A musical from Ari Aster.
All right. And also, perhaps most intriguingly, an untitled big-budget sci-fi satire adaptation.
Okay, big-budget sci-fi definitely suggests he hasn't given up on trying to operate at that major blockbuster level.
Yeah.
That's $100 million plus territory.
Where financial failure is really not an option. Yeah, it shows the ambition is still sky high. And then there's the mention of an untitled gangster saga epic.
Epic, like multi-generational. Crime, corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a massive departure from haunted houses or Swedish cults.
Completely. It suggests he wants to tackle these huge canvases, these classic American film genres.
But he hasn't totally abandoned horror.
No, not entirely. He still apparently has an untitled horror film project on the docket somewhere. And some other adaptations mentioned are Miss Lonely Hearts and something called Don't Wake Daddy. But the sheer weight and variety of the non-horror stuff is striking. He seems determined to break out of that box.
And even the films that struggled, like Eddington, he's not done with them. He mentioned a sequel.
Yeah, he said he was cooking up something related, maybe featuring some returning characters. It suggests that even a film that underperformed commercially is still a world he wants to keep exploring personally.
That really speaks to his level of commitment, doesn't it? These aren't just jobs, they're massive, complex worlds he feels driven to build, whether or not audiences flock to them immediately.
Absolutely. The personal investment seems total. He's going to make these films, seemingly regardless of the commercial consequences.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up, the outro. The cost of ambition. What a journey we've traced.
It's really something. From these shocking student shorts to becoming this horror phenomenon with Hereditary and Midsommar, basically king of the hill at A24.
Right, earning all this creative capital.
And then immediately spending it all on Beau, Is Afraid, and Eddington, these huge, polarizing, financially risky passion projects, while at the same time building Square Peg into this significant production player.
So the key takeaway, maybe, for you listening, is seeing this tension play out so clearly. The tension between this fiercely individual artistic vision,
which insists on long run times, deep psychological dives, difficult themes, ambiguous endings,
and the hard realities of the market, which so far seems to reward that vision most when it's neatly packaged as $10 million elevated horror.
Exactly. The minute he steps outside that box, ups the budget, gets more abstract or satirical, the market, or at least the mainstream market, seems to pull back, resulting in these big financial losses for his backers.
It's like this constant negotiation playing out in public, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between the very private internal terrors he depicts so well and the very public demands of box office and audience reception.
And it's fascinating to loop it all back to where we started, his own descriptions of feeling alienated as a kid in Santa Fe, that obsessive need to consume and then create horror stories.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so deeply connected to the recurring themes in the films themselves, doesn't it? Inherited trauma, the individual crushed by societal forces, by family, by cults, the overwhelming weight of the world on the isolated person. That seems to be the engine driving it all.
Which leaves us with a final thought, a question for you to ponder. Looking at that incredibly diverse slate of future projects, the melodrama, the musical, the sci-fi, the gangster epic, what's the end game here?
Is he deliberately trying to shatter that elevated horror label? Is he willing to take these financial hits as the necessary cost of proving he's more versatile, a true auteur across genres?
Or is he just taking a temporary break from horror? A calculated detour while Square Peg builds resources before eventually returning to the one genre that has, undeniably, brought him massive success and allowed his specific, intense vision to flourish commercially.
It's possible he needs the profit engine of Square Peg, maybe even another successful horror hit down the line to actually fund these other massive, expensive dreams. But whatever the strategy.
His career right now is just this incredibly vivid example of the risks, the rewards, and maybe the sheer exhilarating cost of being truly uncompromising in Hollywood today.
Couldn't have said it better myself. A fascinating figure to keep watching.